Miigwech, merci beaucoup. Thank you for joining us this evening for our NOSM Health Sciences webinar entitled Anishinaabe Mshkiki, Plant Medicines to Support Pain Management. The webinar this evening will be delivered by Joseph Pitawanakwat, who is the founder and director of Creator's Garden. I'm Dr. Michael Ravnick, the manager of the Health Sciences programs at NOSM, and I'm going to do some quick welcomes, updates, and introductions before we get started. So in terms of our agenda, after I do some quick updates and welcomes and introduce Joseph, we will get into the webinar, which will be about 40 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes of a moderated Q&A period. So please do put any questions that you have into the chat box, and during the Q&A period, Haley, our question moderator, will bring those questions forward to Joseph. All right. So we'll start with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the entirety of NOSM's wider campus of Northern Ontario is the ancestral traditional lands of the First Nations people and Métis people who resided alongside. We also respectively acknowledge that the medical school building at Laurentian University is located in the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory and at Lakehead University in the Robinson-Superior Treaty Territory. We also want to acknowledge that today is November 11th, Remembrance Day. And on this day, we acknowledge the courage and the sacrifice of those who have served their country and acknowledge our responsibility to work for the peace that they fought so hard to achieve. Hopefully, you all had a chance to participate in a Remembrance Day ceremony today. As we hope you know by now, our webinars will occur monthly, and we have all of the events scheduled through until the end of January 2021. And we're going to be looking to you for more monthly topics through our webinar evaluation form. And that evaluation form will be sent to you after the webinar today. Upcoming topics include the virtual supervision of students, which will actually be later this month, as well as Francophone health, active offer in healthcare, and another session that Joseph is actually going to be providing in January, more on the Indigenous traditional perspectives on mental health. If you haven't done so already, please sign up for our email lists, and you can email Haley at hsplacements@nosm.ca to let her know which specific list you would like to sign up for, because we do have email lists for the rehabilitation sciences as well as for the dietetics program and the physician assistant program as well. So the other thing that I would like to quickly note is that NOSM's new strategic plan was just launched, the NOSM Challenge 2025. And as part of the launch, NOSM has created a trivia challenge that you can play to win $1,000. And you can also play for our community and help them win a $10,000 donation to a Northern Ontario health center. The trivia challenge is open until January 12th, 2021. To participate in this, you just need to go to www.nosmchallenge.ca. The other thing that NOSM is doing to promote the new strategic plan is they're giving away a free cloth mask that's branded in the Respect the Difference movement. So all you need to do to get yours is to go to the NOSM store at www.nosmstore.ca, add the mask to your cart, and then use the promo code, the NOSM Challenge 2025. And this promo code is only valid through until Friday, so be sure to get yours today. So today's speaker, as I mentioned, is Joseph Pitawanakwat. And Joe is an Ojibwe from Wiikwamkoon, where he lives with his wife and daughter. He's the founder and director of Creator's Garden, an Indigenous outdoor and now online education-based business. It's focused on plant identification, beyond sustainable harvesting, and teaching everyone of their linguistic, historical, cultural, edible, ecological, and medicinal significance through experiences. His lectures and intensive programming have been delivered to a variety of organizations, including over 100 First Nations communities, 20 universities, and 12 colleges, as well as dozens of institutions throughout Canada, the United States, and beyond. He's completing a Master's of Environmental Science at York University, but has learned from hundreds of traditional knowledge holders and is uniquely blending and reinforcing it with an array of Western sciences. Miigwech, merci beaucoup. Thank you, Joe, for your time today. And I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and I'll turn things over to you. Oh, Joe, we can't hear you. You're still on mute.
My bad. Yeah, I was just saying, my poor room, it's falling apart. We had to we have to sacrifice our spare room, which of course is not being utilized, so it wasn't very much of a sacrifice. But uh, it's real tiny for us to be able to do all of our online stuff. Oh man, I should show you guys the floor. We did we harvested medicine this year off and on for like 2 months. It was crazy. And we ended up when things were dry and ready to be stored away, we brought them all up into this room. We usually put them in our basement, but we were like, I use them as teaching tools so often, I might as well just have them up here. But holy man, uh, the goal was to have a bigger shelf to put a bunch of mason jars on, but I can't buy mason jars nowhere. Everyone's sold out. Too much canning this year. So it's just like bags and bags everywhere. One of the medicines that I wanted to show you guys is still in a giant pot. So I'll show you guys that one later though. Well, geez, maybe not even. I should stop rambling already. I have real lots that I wanted to cram in this 45 minutes plus questions. So what I wanted to share with you guys tonight, we've been, well, geez, I guess I should tell you at least a little bit about me. Actually, it's kind of funny. So real fast, just to share sort of, our knowledge acquisition piece. Basically just learned from my grandma. She would just tell me about all different medicines. I thought this was the craziest thing, that she did not have access to a hospital when she was growing up or raising most of her kids. So I was like, wow, this is pretty ridiculous. She had to use plants. My mom is a nurse, and so I grew up with the usual, and yeah, just that was the craziest thing for me, craziest idea. And so all of the stories I would ask her to tell were all of the craziest ones that had to do about medicine. and and then that eventually turned into, me and my wife, we'd go on these big scavenger hunts on Manitoulin to try to find the medicines that she was describing. You know what? Maybe I could just show you guys. I'll just show you. If I go here, right here. So this one, well, I don't know if any of you guys recognize it, but where's my chat? I'll just throw the name in the chat real fast. Anishinaabe name, common name, and Latin name of this plant. One of my favorites, because it's one of the main ones that we learned about. So this is basically our whole process. Kind of wanted to share with you guys. Plus, it's relevant, you know, in the realm of, or in the whole field of pain management. We sort of started. We started working with ICES in Toronto. It's a bunch of epidemiologists, and start, you know, hanging around with them and doing workshops here and there. But me, you know, in the presence of some of our top epidemiologists, I had a whole bunch of questions. So, you know, I'd go work for them. They were real happy, oh, learning about medicine. But I always had questions too. I'd be like, well, you know, what's going on in the whole epidemiology, you know, in Indigenous communities? So they shared some pretty interesting things. You know, they're the ones that taught me that arthritis is the #1 disease that affects First Nations people by a long shot. And then also, what's his name there was just like always asking me about mental health stuff, medicines for mental health, you know, anxiety and depression, and all of this stuff. So I thought, you know, well, maybe you guys could teach me a little bit more about mental health. And it is a really real concern for them. We'll talk about a bunch of these in the next session, but we found that, you know, this was a pretty lucrative opportunity. We should have a mental health program teaching about all of the medicines that support mental health. And one of the things that we realized in developing that program is that pain management is a really huge aspect to that. So it ends up being a big section, and we sort of will tackle mental health and addictions in the same sort of program. And we usually do it over the course of 12 days, like real intense course. But a huge chunk of that, people really like to look at and understand all of the plant supports out there that support the, you know, pain management. And yeah, so when I met my grandma and we were asking her about all kinds of different medicine questions, she would tell us, if you really want to help, you know, with sorry, jumping all over the place here. Our question to her way long time ago was, we wanted to make medicine, you know, we wanted to go out and find it. So she said, well, what kind of medicine do you want to make? And so we said, you know, I would be really good, you know, to make some medicine that helps with aging, or, you know, helps our old people, so that we're nice and strong. And so we thought, you know, bones. This is like 10 years ago. We were like, yeah, let's get medicine to make bones nice and strong. And everybody who gets older, we're worried about osteoporosis, and you know, we can't fall because we'll break everything. And and so we said, well, yeah, it's probably a pretty good idea to make some of this medicine. So she said, I know what you have to go and find. Gzibnashk. And so we were like, oh, what's that in English? And she's like, I don't think it even has an English name. We just call it Gzibnashk. That's all I ever know it as. And it was real cool because we just told her to describe the way that it looks. This is the plant that she described. But I mean, like, imagine not knowing, you know, just looking out into a big green forest. The way that she described it is that it's just one limb poking out of the ground, and it's green, and it has black lines on it. And so me and my wife were like, oh, well, what color are the leaves? I mean, what shape are the leaves? And she said, it has no leaves. It's just one stick. And so we are like, oh, what about the flower? She's like, no, no flower either. So we are like, okay, we got to go find this one plant that has no flowers, no leaves, and it's just a green thing with little black lines called Gazebanoshk. So we are like, okay. And we searched like 2 months, can't find nothing. And it ended up just sort of quitting. And then I had to work in Chiging. So I was driving to Chiging. I forget what I was supposed to do, but I had to pee real bad. I was like, I'm not going to make it. So I asked my wife, pull over right here. I think we were going to Lakeview School. So I said, pull over right here. And Cross Hill Road, it's like the last chance before my workplace that I would have been able to go to the bathroom. So I ran on top of that hill, and it was wintertime too. There was like a little bit of snow. Like I just gave up on finding that medicine, and then there's a bunch of snow, and then it was real cool because you could see probably more clear from these cross sections that it's just it's just one thing, one stick poking out of the ground. And then anyways, I was peeing on the side of the road on a screw trail. And then I melted all the snow around this plant. And I was looking at it because this is an evergreen. You can pick it any time of the year. And I was like, hey, look, this thing is green. That's exactly what she talks about. So I didn't pick that one that I uncovered. I saw a whole bunch of tips poking on top of the snow all around me. So I was like, oh, wow. And I started picking a whole bunch. And I don't even think I went to work that day. I was so excited. I just turned around and went right to my grandma's, and I was like showing her in the window, and she was nodding her head. Yeah, that's the one. And so all of that began right there. So first medicine we kind of found, we were real happy, like, oh, okay. So now what? We started realizing too that this plant was very, very common. Just in the drive home, I was seeing it all over, but I just had to see it just the once. And I started noticing it was all over the place. So then I thought, well, I'll just pick a whole bunch, give some to my grandma, and then we made some for ourselves because she just says, oh yeah, make some tea. I just put it in some hot water, and then in the morning it's like this nice sort of greenish yellowish, green tea color, and you just could just drink it all day. And my grandma, her mom was a midwife, Bridget. She was a midwife, and so that was their role in our community. There was no hospital, so you had to get Bridget to take care of you or prepare you. Most of midwifery is aimed in the preparation process for before pregnancy. Then you can get pregnant. So there's like eligibility criteria embedded in the midwifery protocol to take medicine before you even try. And then anyways, this is one of the medicines that they would take. Her mom would walk sometimes almost 70 kilometers to go to Chiging, the only spot where she knew that it grew, and pick a whole bunch and bring it back home and to the women who needed it. They're in the preparation process. And then after pregnancy as well. And then so, just to help build those calcium stores before pregnancy and then replenish them after. Because, when you're thinking about having kids, one thing to understand is that, they're stealing everything from you even before they're born. Stealing all of your calcium. And so you have to, prepare and then replenish after. And then women generally have to engage in this a lot more throughout their life. So that's what she remembers. And so we're like, wow, what about osteoporosis and things like that? I know lots of people with these issues. So then we go and find people in our community. Hey, some people, they're getting up there in age. And so I'd be like, well, let's go give them this medicine. And so um, we started harvesting medicine then and giving it away, and people in our community started to realize, like, hey, this guy he gets medicine, and it helped me. So everybody starts talking, small town stuff. So now everybody knows, and then so we're just learning, finding medicine, picking it, giving it away, but observing what is happening. So you give somebody a plant, and just sort of see what happens. Which, York, Mike says I'm a student at York, which is true. But they tell me these things are unethical. But that's how everything started. Everybody was real happy, like, hey, that medicine you gave me, it worked. I feel real good. When I started asking around, like, some details, what did you score on your bone density test then? And people were scoring over 100. It's the general bone density test. 0 is the weakest, 100 is the strongest, but 20 below is generally when you would receive the diagnosis, osteoporosis. And but also to understand too that the scale is not like super rigid. I mean, there's certain parts of the body that we will measure only in the negative parts of the scale. But anyways, they were scoring, beyond 100. And so, some of their physicians were like, what are you doing? You had osteoporosis last time you were here. Now you have stronger bones than my kids. What's happening? And they were just like, well, I just had some tea. And so then, there started to be like this little bit of a buzz in our community. And so they wanted me to start to actually formally teach some community members about medicine. And that's how sort of everything started. We would go and hang out, like for the Ksibanash, this bone medicine, we go hang out at a Mikuk, the senior center, and and working with some of the regulars there, we got some of them scoring over 120 on the scale. So they were really happy with their results. And then they go to church with some women in Shishiwaning, or in Sucker Creek, and then they turned it into a contest. Sucker Creek says, "Oh, I bet we could score higher than you guys," and then Chiging says, "Oh, we could probably score higher than you guys," and then all the communities on Manitoulin are trying to see who could score the highest on their bone density test, and it was just because of this one, Scouring Rush or Gzibanash. But this one is super, super important, like for osteoporosis too. But one of my favorite ways to use this, you see the way that it's growing there. There's these joints, there's these sections, and you could actually just pluck those off. They just like it is like a little joint, and then you just sort of just plucks off. And then in between the joint, there's like this really thin, slippery, slimy fluid. And then when you cut the stem, looking at a cross section of the stem, one of the things that makes this plant unique is that it draws silica from the soil, and it deposits the silica in the outermost tissue of the plant. And silica and salicylic acid, so like a really hard abrasive crystal, and you could actually see that shimmering like in the sunshine on a nice day. It's just like just full of silica. And so it's really hard on the outside, and then there's this spongy part in the middle and a hollow center. So the structure of this plant is just like every single bone in our body has the periosteum on the outside, spongy bone in the middle, and a hollow center for marrow. And so that's why I was like freaking out when I first found it, like, hey, that's pretty special. It kind of even looks like it. But then one of the cool things though is that fluid in between the joints, and we were able to see, like, maybe that's the synovial fluid, just showing us, that it helps with that. And one of the things we realized when we start to give this to people especially, older folks, or for, well, I guess younger people too, like JRA, when they get up in the morning and and you just got to do some exercises. You wake up super stiff and you kind of got to roll around in the bed. You kind of have to warm up your hands and just sort of work to get them moving. And that, the exercises that you do, there's pain associated with that. Then finally, after like some people, maybe even an hour of doing these exercises, then you could finally have the dexterity to make a coffee or have a shower. And one of my best experiences with that one, with Kasibanash, is it was one girl, and she was at Kinshgayanteg and Chiging post-secondary institute, and she was real cool. She was a part. I go there. I used to go there like sometimes twice a month, and just be there as a service and sometimes even program provider for them for years. Yeah, so we had a really good relationship with them. They invited me one year to convocation. And then for the summer programming, I immediately worked the next day. So they said, "Come on Thursday for convocation, and then you work on Friday too." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I got there, and it was like, I don't know, the end of June, so it was super hot, and they are all in a big white party tent. Uh, and then they all had the flaps down. No one took the flaps off. And so it was like a big sauna. It was so hot. You could feel air rushing out of that tent when you put your arm in front of the door. And it was hot, wet air. And they just went with it. They wanted me to make tea for their convocation. And so I was like, well, okay. I made 4 or 5 different pots of tea. And then, yeah, we were just cooking. They went through the whole gamut, like as if nothing was happening, though. Like all of they had a big drum there. Everybody had speeches, and then like going around smudging everybody, and we were all just cooking. And then it was real awesome because they forgot water. No one had water. All they had was coffee, and the coffee was in those brown like thermos container things. So the coffee and the tea water were like blisteringly hot. So nobody wanted that. And then I'm there. I had pots of tea that they had already taken a couple hours to cool off just in the packing the vehicle and the traveling there. So they were warm, warm hot, but it was the better option. So everybody was coming to the table like, oh man, I need something to drink, and just drinking a bunch of the different types of tea that I had. And then one girl, she had a big speech. She was one of the first big graduates there from a specialized program, and she come up to the table and she's like, uh, um, I have a speech coming up. She had real lots of makeup on, but it was all like melting off her face. I felt real bad. But then she's like, uh, uh, I I have a speech, and I'm so dry. What can I have like 10 cups of? And I knew she was exaggerating, so I pointed to the gzibanash, this tea I had made with the scouring rush, and she was like, oh, okay. And then she took a dip and drank it, took another cup, and she had 9 cups. And then she was like, oh, I'll have the other one after. But she was like being real accurate. 10 cups of, I thought it was an expression. But she drank real lots. Then she did her speech, and then, yeah, we were all out of there. It was a crazy experience. And then, I didn't think anything of it. I came back to work the next day for the same people. And I was there early, 5 minutes early, 8:25 in the morning. And then I started, I was just getting ready. And then she came busting into the school, and she had her daughter, and she had real messy hair, and she was like, "Oh, I saw that you were here today. I had to come over and see to learn." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, we're just getting started." And then her daughter was like, you know, kids, they just say whatever the heck's going on. So her daughter was like, my mom had a real good sleep. She just woke up. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, right on. That's awesome. Good job. And then her daughter said, no, you don't understand. She can't just get up like that. And then, you know, her mom was like, oh, okay, just never mind. And then explained to me later that she has really, really bad JRA, or juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And she gets up 4 hours early in the morning. And she has to work and do exercises, take her a leave, or you know, whatever it is that whatever OTC that she can get her hands on, and do a bunch of exercises and work. Then she could have a shower and get her kid ready for school and stuff. uh and and so, you know, this has been her whole life. She's just a young girl, but it's been her whole life. And she said that you know, that's why it was very significant. She said, I just got up like 10-15 minutes ago and just ran over here. I woke up and it just felt like everything was full of butter. And and she said, she was like, what was that tea? And then I just pointed to the end of the driveway and I said, oh, it's over there. It's real lots. It's called Gasibanashka. And then Chiging, the community that she's from and where we were, is just covered in it. It grows like grass. And so, you know, she was like, oh, it made me feel so good. And so she started to engage with it on a regular basis. And it wasn't a couple months later that she was getting her going to see her specialist, and was, you know, has been symptom free for so long, and her specialist was, you know, like, removed the diagnosis. It's like this has never even existed before. So she had a real amazing experience with it. And I didn't even think of employing that medicine in like just general issues like with arthritis pain. I thought it was mainly just a bone strengthening thing. You know, that's what I was doing for probably like 6 years by that point. Now I'm starting to realize, oh, you could use it for so many other things that affect your bones and connective tissue. So then we really started to hone in on that. And of course, using our social media too, we found loads of kids swept across the North Shore, finding as much JRA as we could, and using this medicine. And it was like, it's real successful. Plus, it's like super, super delicious tea. It's like one of the best tasting teas you could have it. And like, as far as like safety profile goes, it's one of the most delicious teas too. One of the most safe teas, and you could just kind of have it like every day for your whole life. Yeah. And there's a lot of people in our community that actually do engage with it on such a regular basis. Just because it tastes good. Don't you know? It's like, because visiting some of these people, how come you drink so much of that? Oh, it tastes good. Don't you know it's like amazing medicine? Oh yeah, they used to use that for medicine, and they're just like real chill about it. And yeah, but just drinking it all the time. But yeah, it's really, really good. One of my favorite, so far, it's, you know, it's been like maybe just over 9 years we've been with experience with this particular medicine. One of my favorites is with growing pains. When kids have growing pains, we notice this with our daughter, but we also notice it with a bunch of other people too. That we use it for people close to us. You know, really following these stories. Growing pains. I had those because I'm tall, and I remember it really, really hurts. And then my daughter, she was like just suffering for weeks, and we're like, no, man, I feel so bad. And then my wife looked at me real mad, and she's like, you should be giving her medicine. That's all you teach about. And so then we get to use it for her, and so my daughter knows too. She's 6, Ruth, and she'll say that she'll know, hey, I need to get that medicine, the Gsibanash. And so we'll go over to Fleming College. They have a real nice campus, and it grows over there, just down the road in Peterborough, where I live. So then we'll go and pick it, make tea, and then she even says, "You know what? That's way too strong. I can't. Don't put that much in." She even knows how much to put in the pot, so she's real receptive to that. And she even in her class, she's working with her classmates, like, hey, when the kids talk, oh, it's just growing pains, and they're sitting on they have a big bean bag chair, and she said, well, can I bring them medicine? It's like, I don't know, it's a different situation here. But yeah, this one, I really wanted to share that the scouring rush, Ksibanash, it has a really amazing uh, 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 oh, I probably sounded real weird there for a second. But yeah, it has a really amazing role in uh, arthritis related pains. Um, uh, but yeah, just sort of going off of that real quick, looking at other pain management things. One of my favorite ones that probably all of you guys would be very well uh, exposed to, really easy for everybody to get a hold of. Well, actually, I guess I don't really know where everybody is, but just Sudbury, Thunder Bay. I was thinking NOSM. But anyways, we have medicine. Um, when we're actually doing these, one of the things that Mike says in the intro there is that we really like to teach via experiences. And so what that means is, well, we'll just make everybody these teas, these medicines, and allow them to, just drink it. So we'll just go drive around with big pots of tea everywhere. Trade in value for all of our vehicles is out the window the first job that we have, because there's like all real stains everywhere from tea splashing. And then when we put the lid on tight so it doesn't splash, it creates like this crazy pressure, and then it just sprays all over the car. So we just allow people, we're just allow people, provide the opportunity for people to engage in this type of medicine. And the one of my favorite experiences to be able to provide is actually for sciatica. So this is well, you could probably see it pretty good. This is here, I'll write it down in the chat for you guys. We something like that. I think Sarasia has two R's, but Mukakim Das, we'll call it Mukakim Das because it's a carnivorous plant. It's one of the few carnivorous plants that we have here, but it's hollow on the inside. You probably can't really see, but it's hollow on the inside, and it fills itself up with water, and it converts that water into digestive juice, and attracts bugs to come in, and they cannot climb out. There's these little you probably can't see, but there's these little silky hairs on the inside of the leaf that point down, so the bugs can't crawl out. So it eats bugs, and which I guess, yeah, sounds pretty weird. But the uh, we I really really like this one because it's really dramatic. The we use the root, and you just take pieces of the root and you hold it inside of your mouth. The medicine, it's there's two saponins that are absorbed uh, sublingually, so it's so very fast acting. I actually really like to use this one, and people talk about, one of the things people will talk about is how Anishinaabe Mshkiki, or plant medicine, is something that you need to, it's a part of your lifestyle. You need to dedicate a lot of time to it, which is true. And that's the only sort of setting that it'll work. And one of the reasons why we're so attracted to Western healthcare, in going to the doctor and then going to shoppers, is because of how fast acting it is. And so I use this as one of my examples, is like, oh no, ours can be pretty fast acting too. And so with this one, yeah, because it's absorbed sublingually, so it's in the blood in like 5-10 minutes, 15 minutes max, I guess. And anyways, we take pieces of those roots. I started getting real good at finding out or identifying people in the audience, like the participants, who kind of has sciatica, because they all kind of sit funny, they're all crooked, or they have trouble getting comfortable, or they have their own stool. They bring their own little stool with them. They won't sit in a regular chair. So I started getting real good at identifying if they had sciatica, without having to ask. I would take little pieces of that and cruise around in the room and say, and then I like at lunch or after lunch, put this inside your lip and just hold it there. It tastes absolutely awful. It'd be the worst thing you ever put in your mouth, but just hang on to it. And then your enzymes in your mouth, they'll start breaking it down and make this juice. And don't just swallow the juice right away. Just let it sort of sit around in your mouth a little bit, and so all these people are like, oh, and so they put it inside their mouth. And then, yeah, like 15 minutes later, I did one of the best times was in London. We were halfway through this like 12-day real intense program, and I said, maybe put a couple more orders in for your lunch, and invite everybody that you know who has sciatica. And so they just told everybody in the community that they knew had sciatica, come and eat lunch. So they all showed up, and then I gave them all this root after their lunch and said, oh, just hang out with us for about a half hour or so. Just learn about some medicine. So most of them hung out. But yeah, we must have had like almost 24 people that had real bad sciatica. Gave them all a couple pieces of these roots. And then one lady stood up and she was like, what was in that root? They were not a part of all the previous programming. She just stood up, and so she didn't know. She's like, what was in that root? And then her daughter was looking at her standing up, and she was like, whoa, already surprised at her posture. And then she looked at her daughter and she was like, watch. And then she just went real straight, real tall. And then her daughter like started crying because she knows her mom deals with so much sciatic pain. And so it ended up being like real awesome. A bunch of the other people started standing up, and it turned into this real unusual experience. But yeah, everybody was feeling their back, and some of them started laughing, real like hysterically laughing. And then some of them would just start crying. And then, we just understanding what happened after. The way that everybody describes experience with this medicine is that they just kind of deal with so much pain every single day. And it just dampens every part of their character. And then when all of that was gone, when there was no more pain, there was all that wanted to come out was just floods of emotion. And so some people laughed and some people cried. Then it turned in, everybody was crying. And then, but it was real cool because there was so many people that got to have that experience. So like unknowingly, it was real fun. I guess that would be pretty unethical too. But anyway, this medicine, it's actually really, really amazing, and also like super simple the way that it works. In order for you to be able to sort of register sciatic pain, the sensory neurons are inoculated with calcium. So you have sodium, potassium, and calcium in the sensory neuron, and calcium will send signals, to the dorsal root ganglion. Your brain registers this as pain and says this sucks. And this plant, it draws out, it's been pretty heavily studied, but it draws out all of the calcium from every sensory neuron, only in your lumbar though. And so that pain is immediately gone. But there's also like what some of the studies suggest is that there's like this there's a lasting effect too that happens after, like as if there's like a shunting mechanism that's established to prevent re-inoculation of calcium in the sensory neuron. So it deals with pain so well, but also the cause too of the sciatica. So with some of the components inside of the Makakim Das Jeepkan, the roots, is that they, however this happens, I don't know, that this mechanism hasn't been identified. It's pretty new research. I don't think anybody's going to look at this again. Everybody's research money is in COVID. But anyways, um, uh, it allows the sciatic nerve to repair itself, and, encourages reparation, even in the presence of sugar. So we know like sugar or glucose is incredibly toxic to nerve cells. The nerve cells lack the mechanisms to be able to eject the sugar, just like every other cell. Insulin tells the cell to, insulin forces the sugar inside of the cell. Either they have the mechanisms to not let the sugar in, or once it's in, they just spit it back out. Your kidney cells, eyes, blood vessels, and nerves lack these mechanisms, and so once the sugar it's in, and it destroys the cell. So this is why, like with diabetes, we have diabetic neuropathy, and nephropathy, and kidney renal disease associated with diabetes, all of these stuff. So glucose is incredibly toxic to nerve cells. And so when somebody either has diabetes induced sciatica, or if it's by injury, somebody who gets injured, say they have, they're very have too much sugar, in their body or in their blood, then that nerve is going to have a really hard time or not be able to heal. The glucose prevents reparation to nerve tissue, and especially in sensitive areas like with the sciatic nerve. So however that happens, when somebody is engaging in this medicine, it allows the healing and reparation of the sciatic nerve, with the presence of sugar too. So there's something really special that's happening there that I really want to tap into. But that tends to be sort of the mechanism when we're looking at just pain management. We got to look to all of the different medicines. There's no like one pain management medication. You look to medicine that's designed to healing this part of your body. And so when you look at the curvature of this leaf, we see the same curvature as your spine, and say, well, this is medicine for your spine. And when we look at your skin, say we're taking somebody with really bad maybe psoriasis, the psoriatic arthritis or pain associated with arthritis, we'll look to the medicine that helps our skin. So we'll look to a topoash or alder and use this in a bath to help with the arthritis pain that they feel. So we look to the way that this medicine works is each plant is designed to heal one specific part of your body, and it does that, and so that's what it does. And so embedded within that is the mechanisms to be able to generally immediately relieve pain in that area, and allow for a conversion from sometimes like chronic types of inflammation to acute types of inflammation, to allow the healing, to expedite the healing process versus preventing it from happening. And so the changes in inflammation, and then to encourage the healing, the healing of that particular part of your body. So that's one of the ideas that I really just wanted to introduce tonight. is that when we're looking at pain management uh, from an Indigenous perspective, one of the things that we have to do is identify, you know, the medicine that is designed for that particular part of our body, whether it's your connective tissue, your bones, and ligaments and joints and stuff with the scouring rush, or whether it's it's in your spine or your skin or your mouth. I had so much examples that I wanted to share with you guys, that I could keep going for. Well, technically, this usually takes about 2 days to cover all of these all of these ideas. Um, so, but yeah, I'm just realizing time, and so I wanted to make sure that I'm answering some of your questions. If any questions came in, uh, maybe privately. There's some questions. Okay.
Yes. So thank you very much, Joe, for sharing your stories and your knowledge. There's so much important knowledge in Indigenous culture and Indigenous medicines that can really add to everyone's life and deserves more study and more attention. And with that, I'll take the privilege of the first question. And certainly, as Joe just mentioned, if there are additional questions, please put them in the chat, and Haley will summarize them for us. But my question for you, Joe, I'm just wondering if this is what you're doing for your master's degree, looking at that kind of the blending of the Indigenous medicine in Western culture. If your research at York is related to that, you didn't speak to it, so I'm just curious what your research is on.
Yeah, no, mine was focusing on access to Indigenous healthcare, and so that's, you know, that was the tie-in for the environmental science, but I'm trying to pressure the university to include into the process the health sciences and a health sciences department to be able to be included in on this, because one of the biggest barriers, I mean, Derek's hitting it really good with that question. One of the biggest barriers to accessing Indigenous healthcare is met at the site of the physician or the practitioner, and so that's where the resistance is met generally, because I mean the reason apparently is because we don't understand what the plants are doing, and so we don't understand maybe potential contraindication. So if the patient is going to continue taking these medications, the physician might have to withdraw if they're going to keep taking the medicines, then the physician may have to withdraw treatment. And so my work is dedicated to providing healthcare with or healthcare practitioners and professionals with the knowledge that they need to be able to understand how the plant works, to be able to identify contraindications themselves. And so I mean but yeah, so that's my main job. And you know, for our school, that's why I really want health sciences to be involved. There's been resistance there, as I was supposed to have my master's like 2 years ago, but I'm not gonna cheap out on it. I want it done the way that it should be done, and I think health sciences needs to be incorporated into that, at least to begin this process of communication. Because I mean, you look at the process of one of the things that I admire the most about you know, the Western approach to healthcare is that it is a master at giving people the ability to live with chronic disease for as long as possible. And where Anishinaabe Mshkiki works, where Anishinaabe Mshkiki is a master, is preventing the onset of chronic disease for as long as possible. And so you could see this is not a disparity or a difference in worldview. It's an opportunity for us to be able to work together to be able to prevent the onset of chronic disease, which is the ultimate, killer. And so to prevent the onset of chronic disease for as long as possible, and when this does happen, then get the opportunity to be able to live with these for then, as long as possible.
Oh, thank you. I understand that during the recording, the chat isn't going to be visible, so I'm just going to read out Derek's question for you, and then if there was anything else you wanted to add as a response. But so Derek says, as a physiotherapist, we're not really allowed to discuss or recommend to patients that they take specific herbs, medicines, supplements, etc., as it's outside of a physiotherapist scope of practice. So where can we direct our clients if they express an interest in trying more traditional, natural, or indigenous medicines versus traditional pharmaceutical options?
Yeah, so that's the best. So, um, yeah, well, there needs to be options. That capacity needs to be built within Indigenous communities too, to be able to recognize, understand, support, and facilitate the development of cultural practitioners or medicine practitioners to then be able to, consult with in situations like this when there is an interest. But I think that again, the issue then would fall on the institute that is creating the physiotherapists now, to be able to have the knowledge needed to be able to be the providers or educators of a culturally appropriate therapy or treatment. If there is something out there that is perhaps can be understood as something that's more culturally appropriate than the pharmaceuticals that are out there, that should be supported. And so I mean, this question falls onto the institution to then be able to provide their graduates with the knowledge to be able to understand these questions on their own. And of course, one of the things that I always think of when people ask this question is like, of course, in order for this to happen, these medications or these Anishinaabe Mshkiki has to be understood to a very large degree. There has to be, placebo, double-blind, placebo-control RCTs done on every single plant to be able to identify it as. And then we got to think about this whole crazy process. And I think that we have an opportunity in Indigenous communities, a part of the schoolwork that I'm doing. One of the things that we're incorporating into into the graduate work or writing is perhaps an opportunity to expedite this process and to sort of break free from traditional protocol, traditional Western protocol, or however the heck you want to say it, to be able to understand. So one of the things that I say, I guess I could just say it now, is that when you look at like residential schools, was notorious for medical experimentation on Indigenous children. It's why we have pablum. Pablum was a formula that was created by, I think in Brandon in Manitoba, where they starved kids and just to see the minimum amount of nutrients that they need for basic development and just to stay alive. And so medical experimentation is something that we're not so unfamiliar with. And so if you take this, all of this decolonization and indigenization and all the stuff everybody talks about, why can't we apply it in this setting and say, hey, you know what? Let's do let's repatriate the whole medical experimentation process and say, this is our medicine to begin with. This is Anishinaabe Mshkiki. And so let's expedite this RCT process to then to utilize Anishinaabe Mshkiki or plant medicine, but it would just be somebody or an Indigenous person being reunited with a knowledge that is a part of their life from the very beginning, should have been a part of their life from the very beginning. And so we have all kinds of real cool ideas. But yeah, again, I just think that question falls upon the institute responsible for creating the physiotherapists. That's where the long-term solution is going to be found.
Yeah, I think you're right, Joe, and I think certainly with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I do hope that rehab programs are looking at being able to incorporate have more diverse and inclusive ways of knowing. But just to follow up on that question, so if a physiotherapist did have an Indigenous client who wanted to pursue those types of things, is there someone typically in a First Nations community that he or she would be able to go to for some of the knowledge that you shared with us tonight, for example?
Yeah, so I think there are community recognized healers. There's community recognized plant-based medicine knowledge holders. That is becoming increasingly more and more common. The demand is increasing from what I've been able to experience. And a lot of the times the health center has usually a pretty diluted program to be able to find individual access to whatever plants or whatever medicines they want. But other than that, I mean, that's why one of my main jobs with all of the communities that we work in is identifying the knowledge that already exists in the community and maybe just filling in a couple gaps and then leaving. My goal is to lose my job. If this knowledge was working and rolling in every community, then yeah, I wouldn't have to this, just for a community to realize that this knowledge is already there, so that and then to have a recognition process so that Derek can be like, well, our community has been looking to this person, maybe here's their name and number, and see what you can do, see what they can do to help.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Joe. Haley, I'm going to ask you to kind of maybe summarize any of the questions that were put into the chat or perhaps were sent to you in a private message.
Yeah, well, thank you, Joe, for the presentation. So there were two questions in the chat in addition to Derek. So one is, have there been any traditional medications being used for COVID management or prevention?
Oh yeah, that's one thing I'm being consulted with on a regular basis. Ever since the beginning, communities sort of reach out to me and yeah, just asking what they could do. One of the coolest things, yeah. So we focus on both aspects to the immune system. We look at medicines that support your innate immune system to then help manage that initial load of the infection, that initial viral load, and then we look at the activated immune system and providing support to that to allow or to provide the opportunity to sort of get better faster. As well with that, we're incorporating different medicines that support cardiovascular health to mitigate that risk, and then of course respiratory health. To help with that sort of lung damage. And so we made this little package and presentation, and the coolest thing is communities developing tea or medicine delivery programs, because what a lot of communities, indigenous communities, look is say, well, who are the most at-risk people in our community, and how could we take care of them? Well, if you want them to stay home and not get in, not potentially get infected, give them everything that they need. So they do delivery programs. Diabetes is the main risk, I guess, in indigenous communities. And so a lot of diabetes programs are doing groceries and delivering groceries, have delivery programs to help keep everybody home, their most at-risk members. And we just threw some tea in there. And some of the communities are getting back at me like, oh, that Labrador tea we are giving them for as the prevention, and some of their A1Cs they are scoring normal because the medications that we use or the medicines that we use for immunity and immune system accuracy and all this stuff, it ends up being metabolism medicine, because one of the biggest things that is responsible dampening your innate immune system is insulin. So if we are able to lower the resistance to insulin, sensitize somebody to insulin using Labrador tea, some of this medicine, then their immune system is going to be, innate immune system is going to be much more accurate. But if you're offering so much repair to the metabolism, then their diabetes, their A1Cs are coming back in the normal range. Their diagnosis is removed and their risk is removed, and so they don't need to take tea to them anymore. But so there's it's good little things people are doing here and there. It's different in every community though. Every community knows what the best protocol is to support their members and and so yeah, we do what we can to support that. There's a lot of pretty neat programs communities have put in place. That was one of the best ones though.
Thanks, Joe. So we just had another question. So would traditional medicine be influenced, used by communities? Okay, would traditional medicine used by communities be influenced by the regional plants they grow within their community? Or is there a history of sharing plants among communities for medicinal purposes?
Yeah, that's a solid question. That really shows me that you're really thinking about this. I really love and appreciate that. So yeah, everything is different everywhere. One of the reasons why we've grown to be such a I don't know how to say, the popular resource is because that's one of the things that we're really good at is providing as culturally appropriate recommendations as possible, and that means the regionally specific plants. And so I could be in a remote indigenous community in the far north and understand what they're going to have very easy access to, solve the same problems as I would in the Carolinian forest in southwestern Ontario, and then into the Laurentians like in Ottawa. Just understanding all of those different regions, we've been able to provide them with very accurate and accessible knowledge. I always tell everybody, we're not going to want to go into these situations now and learn about flowers that only bloom for 3 days in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. We're going to want to learn about things that are right there, right in our backyard, medicines that our ecosystems are known for, or that these regions are known for. And then to the second part of the question is there is so much evidence of trade with medicines. But the problem is that now everybody has cars. So everybody just drives everywhere. There's certain medicines you get in Manitoulin, certain medicines you get in the north. Once you get to the Shield, certain medicines in the Laurentians, certain medicines in the Carolinian. And so our harvest is all over Ontario for that reason. But yeah, those one of the things we're trying to resurrect is that old that traditional sort of sharing of medicines again, because what's popping up in all of our communities now is different health teams, and so the combination of cultural practitioners and like I'm working with a really amazing group in North Bay where we are, it's just a nurse practitioner, mental health workers, and everybody, representing the Western medical side of things. And we have, on the other side of the table, all the cultural practitioners, and I'm guiding them through the process of what we need to understand to incorporate medicine into the daily practice. And with the inaction of these programs, which are popping up all over, I'm hoping to incorporate within that a little network, a sharing network. So plants plentiful here can just be sent in the mail here, and everybody's sharing. That'd be really nice. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. So we have one more question, and I'll just draw your attention to the chat regarding a study that was done. One of our participants has put some information in there. But the question actually is, I'm wondering about neuropathic pain and diabetes, and then there is a portion of the chat that speaks to a study done in India.
Oh yeah. I'm just seeing that now. Oh, cool. Okay, wait. So neuropathic pain in diabetes. Yeah, that one is super fun. Let me show you real quick. Oh, let me just oh, there it is. That's the best one. So I'll write this in the chat so you can have it. Mshkiki Tigons is tamarack, which is large Laricia. We make a tea with this tree, tamarack tree, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely one of the most amazing things. I guess well, it's not, but yeah, for pain. So we can make tea with this. This is medicine that supports the nervous system entirely. It's actually really cool. I don't have an image of it exactly. I actually wiped accidentally a whole hard drive. But anyways, the tree has the same branching patterns as so. Oh, my daughter has it's too late. Anyways, I gave my daughter a toy, and it's just a section of a tamarack tree that has branches coming out, and it looks random, like just nature random. But I always show my daughter the exact site in it where neuropathic pain is registered. So it's really cool the way, plants show you how they could be used. But tamarack tea is definitely one that we use. Somebody starts engaging with this, we do this in health centers all over the place. One of the best was in Ottawa, Wabano, because we had like 40 people who all drink. I had the diabetes program all week long, and with part of the pain management workshop, yeah, we had like 40 people. All of us drank. It was on Wednesday. All of us drank tamarack tea, and on Friday, everybody was coming in saying that, this neuropathic pain is just like, it was completely like numbed out or gone. And then when we came back the next time, I was trying to tell them how amazing tamarack is for your nerves. And so what we did, they said, well, it fix my feet because they have neuropathy in the feet. I have no feeling, like Mr. Deeds. And and then I made a big massive pots. We had like about 20 of us, and we had big diabetic foot ulcers. Like, he's like, can I put my feet in there? Because he had like a big hole in his foot. And so we're like, oh yeah, just slap it in. And the nurses were there helping everybody with their foot bath. We soaked their feet in tamarack. And this is one of my favorite programs to deliver every single time. The same thing happens. You take somebody who has neuropathy so bad they have absolutely no feeling in their feet. In a half hour, they'll have pins and needles, but like not painful, not the usual pain associated with it. Just like, if it's just lightly falling asleep a little bit. After a half hour, they'll have sensation on the bottom of their feet. I mean, after an hour and a half, they'll have sensation on the bottom of their feet. And if we're able to soak their feet for 3 hours, then the nurses do the prick test, and they have sensation throughout their entire foot. And spending a couple days with them, they have no more sign of neuropathy by Friday when we leave the organization. And so foot care teams will go from, giving Epsom salts baths and cutting toenails to soaking the patient's feet in tamarack bark tea. And we've seen in some communities, the diabetes or diabetic foot care team just dissolves. There's no need for it anymore because the neuropathy is so well controlled in the community. And then they're able to move on to focus on other problems that the health center is dealing with. So wow. Tamarack has, a really, really incredible impact on our nervous system, and the neuropathic pain is felt super fast, as well as the genesis or regenesis of the nerves totally.
I think what your stories really tell us, Joe, and your knowledge is that there's so much to learn about these medicines and the value that they have. And I think we'll finish up just with if Ranjan, if you wanted to actually just turn your mic on and kind of explain what you've said in the chat, and then Joseph can comment on it, if you're okay with doing that.
Yeah, that's super cool. I read it over.
I'd offer to read it, but I'm just worried that I wouldn't get all of the pronunciations right. So, Ranjan, I'm not sure if you want to or not, but certainly feel. Oh, okay. He's having trouble turning on his mic, but
Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool things. I've been following everybody's the amount of COVID research coming out is just completely overwhelming. And so just rolling with it. So that's all I'm reading about. And there's a lot of different they're looking at drug discovery and things like that. So a lot of different medicines that are used in from the Great Lakes are they're being researched. One of the coolest ones is actually interestingly a smoke medicine. So the smoke medicine we use is caribou moss. So caribou moss or reindeer lichen, whatever, or reindeer lichen. One of those. It has a bunch of different names. It's this white moss. It's so cool when you look at it though, because it just looks like lungs. It's real awesome, and you burn it. Not real lots, but just like a little bit. Just so there's a little taste in the air. There's a little bit of a sourness, and that changes. There's a change in the consistency of the mucus being produced in your respiratory tract. And one of the things that they identified in a couple studies is that the S proteins, the spike proteins, are not able to penetrate through the changed mucus. So those S proteins, they're designed to go so long and spiky to go through the mucus to be able to attach to the ACE2 receptor to be able to deliver the RNA. And so when the mucus changes in the presence of that medicine, the smoke medicine, those S proteins are not able to go through at all. Or just to like a very superficial degree, and so but these would be like an aerosol. They're trying to look for ways to be able to create like a new kind of puffer that will allow these changes to happen in mucous membranes. But yeah, there's all kinds of real cool. I'm really happy to see that you're keeping on top of some of the research that's out there. Yeah.
it's really interesting, Joe, with the what you're describing in terms of the parallels between the structure of the human body and structures that are found in nature, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, I was just at Queen's University on last Friday, I think, and I did a whole presentation just on that. It was like 2 hours. I went through like 80 different plants. It was real crazy. Super fun though.
I just so that it's on the record, because again, I'm not sure that the chat is going to show up in the recording, but Ranjan, he said he is from India and that there's been a study there. If people are interested on ethnomedicines of Indian origin for combating COVID-19 infection by hampering the viral replication using structure-based drug discovery approach. So thank you for sharing that, Ranjan. And I know that we've gone a little bit over, but the questions and the discussion were great. So I just wanted to thank you again. Miigwech, merci beaucoup. Thank you, Joe, for your time tonight, and thank you everyone for participating. And we look forward to having you back again in January to continue on the discussion and speak more around Indigenous traditional perspectives on mental health.
Yeah, that one's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
right. Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for putting up with my lack of emails and working to getting everything going. Yeah, so this is good. I like this.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you, everyone. And we hope you have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, we'll see you.